Hey all, Justin Pursuti here, now aka the Heart of Urchins. Just thought I'd hop on here real quick and answer some questions that nobody has, but I do feel like in answering them it will add some texture to the project and maybe get people a little bit more invested in it. Questions like, why now? Like, why am I making music again, recording music again? And why not under Salamander Valley, right? I could just as easily do this under Salamander Valley. Why am I taking on a new, I guess identity, a new project name? And I do feel like they both kind of have to do with each other. So it's a great place to start for me. So in terms of why I'm doing this now, well, I fell out of love with making music a while ago, unfortunately, and I think part of it had to do with some things in my music not being successful, some things having to do with just feeling a little bit discouraged altogether, and then just life in general. Got busy, and a lot of other things take precedent, right, in your adult life. And making time to nurture that creative side can be a little bit difficult if you're not feeling inspired or motivated to do so. So let's start with, part of the reason why I'm back is a little while ago I was looking into the idea of writing new music. And the concept of a retrospective actually really got my gears turning and thinking about how pretty much the last time that I was making music was about a decade ago. 10 years. So much can happen in 10 years. And so much has happened in 10 years, I was in If We Sleep, I did the Salamander Valley thing, and then boom, here we are, and instead of being 26, I'm 37 now. So that's interesting, and I know some musicians do this as well. Sometimes you look at your old material and you're like, oh, this was awesome, and sometimes you're like, this part didn't work very well. And that's kind of where I was coming from. So I made a little video about a month or two ago about my work, my solo work in Salamander Valley, and I felt a certain warmth in that because there was a lot of genuine inspiration and experience. It was a great experience. It was a learning experience too. I had just come fresh out of If We Sleep, and I kind of had a chip on my shoulder, like I felt like I had something to prove, and that interpreted itself in multiple various ways. I kind of moved away from my roots and tried this R&B/pop thing, and I really, because of some of the criticisms that I had received, wanted to focus on my vocal work. Now let's be frank here. My vocals have never been my strong suit. They just haven't. And trying to translate how I was singing at the time into this pop R&B project, it was difficult. And I was finding that I was actually pretty discouraged during that process as well. And it wasn't even necessarily the genre change. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually have a decent amount of vocal cord damage, and it does not necessarily stem from If We Sleep or Salamander Valley. It happened before that, and during the time of If We Sleep in Salamander Valley, and over the last 10 years as well, it's only become exacerbated, it's only become more pronounced. that for a lot of my life I was singing from the wrong place, physically, and not really holding my voice in a healthy way, if that makes sense. I'm sure vocal coaches know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of use of my throat. Anyways, and I'm a pervert sometimes. Anyways, so a lot of use of my throat, and just unfortunately a lot of like restriction that was not productive or conducive to allowing my voice to be the most musical that it can be. So a lot of the time over the last 10 years, especially recently, has been about retraining my voice to sing from a place that is conducive to my overall vocal health, because I was fighting vocal exhaustion all the time. Singing, and sometimes when I'm not singing, sometimes when I'm talking about a serious topic that can be upsetting or stressful, and I can catch myself not holding my voice correctly. So that's one thing, that this project is going to be different. My vocals are going to be a little bit different, and that's exciting. It's also a little scary, but we're going to have a productive experience there. And over the last 10 years, I think that was one thing that I was like, probably never gonna really sing again. I'm probably only going to be doing karaoke or something every once in a while, right? And even then, like, vocal exhaustion all the time, even when I'm at karaoke, Another thing with Salamander Valley was obviously the genre change, right? I tried to go basically from being a musician to a recording artist. The heavy emphasis on my vocals, and I do think that shot me in the foot at the time. If it was good music, then it was good music. I think the strongest music that came out of that time period were the tracks that had rock roots. So like Turn Down the Lights and Sayonara, which if I could go back and remaster those two tracks, I would, and I will. If not, I don't want to make any promises. Just as like bonus tracks, thinking ahead. But let me tell you what, trying to make certain types of pop music, especially predominantly electric, like piano, keyboard, and a lot of samples, can be very exhausting instead of just coming at it from a tangible musical approach, like using guitars and bass and drums, real drums, right? And so a lot of time in the studio, I actually found it quite a discouraging experience, because if anybody's like made EDM or stuff like that, you're sitting there like with samples and building everything from scratch and making sure this sound goes with this other sound, and building that out. And it was tough because didn't have any experience in that before. It was a good experience for me. It was the first time I played at least some keyboard and synth, and it was the first time that I was a little bit more hands-on with Pro Tools and things like that. But I don't necessarily want that to be where my attention is at on this project. And in turn, trying to go, I think, from a musician to a recording artist, a couple things happened. One, I was trying to have some sort of mystique. Now, if you know me in real life, I have no mystique. I'm just a kind of goofy kid who sometimes takes himself a little too seriously, but I'm 37 years old. I'm wearing a horror t-shirt. I'm recording this in front of my action figures, and I'm like 5'4" in the best pair of shoes. I'm just a normal guy, you know, with a musical history who wants to make music again. And I think during that time period, I tried to reinvent myself, hence Reinvention was the EP name for Salamander Valley. And maybe that was at a cost. I don't want to say that it was a disingenuous project. I do think I had really good intentions, but I also think at some point it was a vanity project. And that's not what I'm trying to do with the Heart of Urchins. The Heart of Urchins is more about taking a look at who I am now and maybe just showing my growth, basically. In doing that retrospective where I put together a lot of the clips for the old Salamander Valley stuff, I've explored some of my music. Some of the opinions that I have are not the same as they are now. You know, I wrote that when I was 26. I'm 37 now, and no shame. You know, I mean, what I wrote then reflected who I was then. And for me, the Heart of Urchins is closure. If I only do this EP and never do anything else, that's going to be okay. You know, and that's pretty much what I want out of it, is to just be a reflection of me. Just me. And that's exciting. It's also a bit more of a personal experience that I hope everyone who listens to it will enjoy and can relate to. It's a lot of self-acceptance. So much has happened in 10 years, and so much does happen in a decade, right? I went to therapy, faced a lot of things, grew, a lot of self-acceptance, a lot of accountability. I lost my grandmother, which is on this EP in a sense as well. There was a lot of healing that happened in the last decade as well. And it gets me kind of emotional because I feel a lot differently about myself now than I did then. And I want that to be on this EP. And that's what you're going to get, you know? So in terms of the Heart of Urchins, one thing is it just kind of sounds cool. And that's kind of where I was at with that. But also I was looking into like the idea of like what that could mean, right? Urchins as an animal do not have a heart. And they do not have a brain. But how can I take that and make it into something malleable that I can translate into this musical experience, right? And I kind of look at it as sometimes we all find ourselves in the heart of the urchins, in the Heart of Urchins. Kind of think of it maybe where we make the assumption that something like that is desolate, is barren, it's very cold, you know. Sometimes after something traumatic, or starting over after a long relationship, or just not having a lot of positive feelings about yourself and having unhealthy coping mechanisms and trying to go from where you are now to where you want to be is a journey. And maybe at one point in our life, we all find ourselves beginning again in the Heart of Urchins. Because even though it may seem like it's cold and desolate place, it's fertile ground for personal growth and for discovery, right? It's a journey. So that's kind of how I look at it, you know. I think it's also cool to think that, okay, so urchins traditionally don't have hearts. What if they did have hearts, right? They're these spiny little poisonous / venomous things and they don't look very cozy, right? But we don't know what goes on inside, right? So I thought that was kind of cool. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, everyone. It's a retrospective. Salamander Valley doesn't really represent where I'm at anymore, and so we have this new name, and new music is forthcoming. I'm going back to the recording company with the great Tim Lynch producing once again. Great place to go and record music and have a really in-depth experience, hands-on experience, and I'm comfortable there. If We Sleep recorded there, Salamander Valley recorded there, and once again, it's been a decade since I've been there, so there's kind of an element of this imposter syndrome as well, where it's like, why am I going back and making new music? Like, maybe nobody wants to hear it, what I have to say, right? Or like, maybe I'm not the best musician that's going to walk into that building. And that's okay. That's okay, because this is something that I'm doing for me. And if when you listen to this you get something from it, great. But for me, this is closure, and I hope you enjoy it. Doing some updates probably in the future. It's all tentative, and we'll just see where it goes. But hey, we're like 16 minutes in, 17 minutes in, so if you've listened, thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon. Turn down the lights, whoa.